What is up, guys? EvilDuosArm here today, and today I have for you a part 9 of our 2D side-scrolling tutorial that we've been working on. In this episode, what we're going to do is go ahead and make our AI character. This is going to be a long episode, so please sit back and get yourself some water or a snack, because you are going to be here for a while, because making an AI in a game is very difficult, because at the end of the day, you're trying to make something that's going to play like a human and react to the player and generally be an obstacle. So we want to make something that's good, so it is going to take a lot of time here, and yeah, so be prepared. Anyway, what you're going to have at the end of this, though, is you're going to have an AI that's going to follow the player around, try and stab the player, and if he does hit the player, it will do damage to the player, as you can see. And then you can also go ahead and interact with the AI. If you hit him, he gets stun locked. You can go ahead and kill him, and when he dies, and he remains as an obstacle that you have to go ahead and jump over. So we have a fully functioning AI. Once again, that is what we are going to be making in this. So just to show you again, we have our AI. He can go ahead and kill our player. We can fight him. He gets a hit damage if we hit him with the sword. We can throw a kunai at him, and he can also kill us. So it's a full functioning AI. I haven't coded out the continually attacking thing after you're dead, but you can just go ahead and press respawn and continue along. So that's something that's going to have to be done. But yeah, he chases the player, hunts him down, tries to fight, and yeah, generally a successful AI. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through making the AI entirely, then we're going to go ahead and interact with the player, and then we're going to go ahead and interact with projectiles. So it's going to be a little bit of a 3-segmented sort of video. So let's get started with the AI itself. So first of all, you'll notice this is a different character. So to get these animations, you're going to have to head over to this website. The link will be in the description below. These are the assets that we're using, these free 2D Fantasy Night assets down here at the bottom of the page. Go ahead and give those a download. Go ahead and support the author of this work, because they do a great job and they have a ton of different animations. Likewise, if you wanted to use a different character than you want to see in the video here, you can use any one of these guys. You can use any character on the thing, because coding it is going to be exactly the same. You'll just adjust where you have your hitboxes based on what weapon the character has. So let's go ahead and hop in, and I'm not going to go through showing you how to create the animation flipbook again. If you want to see that, go ahead and check out the older videos in this series. I believe episode 3 is where I start doing some animation flipbook stuff, so you can go ahead and check that episode out and show you how to import it. Basically, download the files. The files are going to go into your source folder. You're going to have a whole bunch of different animations for each of these characters. So they're in the PNG folder. If you go to this 2D folder that he comes with when you get it, go to the PNG folder, Night 1, attack, die, hurt, idle, jump, run, walk. You're going to want to go ahead and import all of these into your Unreal Engine 4. So the way that I had mine set up is down here. I created a new folder in the content folder called enemies. So I have this new folder, enemies, right click, new folder, enemies. Inside of enemies, I have Night 1, because that's the night that I created. And I have a character blueprint called Night 1 here, and I have my animations, and then I have flipbooks like I always did with all the other ones. So I have all my flipbooks here. Then I have all the sprites located in this folder here. So all my flipbooks are separate from the sprites. So once again, in order to import those, all you got to do is click on one of these, click on all of them, drag them in, wait for the little plus to pop up, they'll all drop in, extract sprites, you know the deal, how to make these. So we have all of our animations in these folders. We went ahead and made the flipbook for all of these. What we need to do now is get the character installed. So as you can see, I already have a Night 1 character, and actually it's up over here because I'm going to be copying it. But what you want to do is go ahead and copy over a character that we already have. The only character that we already have is actually our player character, so we're going to go ahead and do that right now. So what we're going to do is go ahead and copy our 2D side-scroller character. So click on it, Control-C, hop into the Night 1 folder that you've created for your night, and paste it in here. So now we have this little asterisk next to our character, and it's called 2D side-scroller character. We're going to go ahead and right-click that, and we're going to rename it. So I already have Night 1, so I'm just going to call this Night 1A, since, you know, I'm making the exact same character for you right now. So we're going to call it Night 1A. Just call yours Night 1 when you go ahead and do this. So the first thing we're going to want to do in Night 1, and actually let me drag that over off of my second monitor and onto our main page here, is we need to get rid of some stuff that we're not going to be using for the character. So first of all, we have this respawn logic right here. So wherever you made this respawn logic when you made the main character is going to be located right here. So we want to get rid of this whole respawn logic. We don't want to respawn the character when our player presses R on the keyboard. We only want to respawn the player character. He'll automatically respawn when the level reloads in our code. Next thing we're going to want to do is head over to this bit right here where we have this HUD being created. So we don't need to create the HUD either. Our non-player character, the AI, doesn't need a HUD, so we can go ahead and delete that code as well. So just go ahead and delete both of those. Next thing we need to do is we need to change all of the animations that we created, and we need to go ahead and set those to the animations for our new character. So for our new character that we created, the animation that we want to set for our flipbook, over here on the select menu, so we have our idle and our run. What we want to do is we want to set run. We want to change the idle to the idle for the character, so we're going to go ahead and it's the underscore idle. So we're looking for underscore idle. There it is right there, underscore idle. And if it is not standing still, then we want to use the underscore run. So we're looking for underscore run. Whatever you name these flipbooks for the character is what you're going to go ahead and change them to. So we've got both of those added in. Next, we want to change the jump animation to the underscore jump animation from the character that we just created. And then we want to change the jump attack to just regular attack, underscore attack. We're looking for underscore attack. I guess there's no underscore on this one because that's the spear guy on that little mini icon there. And then once again, same thing. We want both the same attack menu animations. So since this character doesn't have a separate animation for when he's in the air attacking, we'll just use the attack for both of them. So we have both of those set up. So now our character will attack, he'll walk, he'll run, he'll do all that fantastic stuff. Next thing we need to do is not worry about jump throw because this has no projectiles. We're not going to be doing any throwing of projectiles with this character, so we don't need to worry about that. If you were doing a ranged character, this is where you would go ahead and change these to whatever the ranged attack animations were. Once again, if it is a ranged character like a bow and arrow, or instead of a kunai, you would change it to the arrow projectile right here for when it spawns the projectile. So these are for basically when we go ahead and do a ranged character. This is a melee character. So if you're going to do a ranged character, you would adjust these bits of code. Alright, so now scrolling down a little bit further, we have our dead logic. So when our player dies, or when our character dies, we want to change it from our player character's dead to the underscore die, so the dying animation for this character. And then finally, we need to create a loop as well. So if you didn't already create a die loop, so once again in the animations flipbooks, all you do for a die loop is you take the final animation and the die, which I think is like 6 or 5 or 6, and you just create an infinite loop of that, so it just keeps doing the same animation, so your character doesn't keep jumping up and down like it is in that die animation right there. So go ahead and make sure you put that die loop in. We're going to keep all these delays the same for now, although we're going to have to adjust them since it does have shorter frame times. So right now we're just going to go ahead and control save, file save everything right now. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is change the variable name for dead. So if you click on dead over here in the bottom left corner, and what we're going to do is we're going to change this to dead night 1. So for you, name it dead night 1. For me, I'm going to name it dead night 1A since it's my dead night 1A. Basically, this is just so we don't confuse it when we're calling the variable for different characters. That way we always know what thing we're killing. We don't want to be killing the player when we mean to kill something else. So that's why we're going to make sure we have it a different name. You don't actually need to do this. It just helps keep things organized a little bit. So we've got our dead night 1A. The other thing we need to do is we need to add 3 more Boolean variables. So we're going to go ahead and add 3 Boolean variables. So just click the new variable button 3 times and get all 3 of those variables added in there, and we're going to go ahead and rename them. So the first one we need to create is overlapping. So is overlapping is going to reference it overlapping the player's area, like so when the AI sees the player. That's what this is overlapping is going to be representing. So we'll go ahead and compile and save that one. The next one we need to create is overlapping spear. So if you are using a different weapon, like an axe or a sword, you would name it whatever weapon they're using. So this is a spear, so we're going to call it is overlapping spear. Is it overlapping the spear? And then the final one we need to do is add a variable for hit. So you saw when the player was hitting the character with the sword, the enemy AI kept like reacting to the hit. That's what we're going to do now. We need to create a variable for when the character gets hit so we can interrupt whatever animation is running and go ahead and play the getting hit animation. So we've done that. We've got all 3 of those variables added in, and now we are in good shape to get started on this. So what we're going to want to do is head over to the viewport, and in the viewport we're going to change this animation. So this animation we want to switch to the underscore idle animation, so underscore idle. So now we have our character idling. As you can see, he is huge compared to the little box over here, so what we're going to want to do is go ahead and scale him down to make him fit into the little cubicle over there. So we're going to try different variables, and actually I have it up over here so I can just copy what I have for the scale of this character. It looks like 0.19 is what works. So once again, set this little block to so it's locked, and type in 0.19. He'll fit inside of this, and then what we need to do is drag him over to the side a little bit to better center him in the region. Alright, so we've got him all set up and ready to go here. So we're actually going to delete this box because this came off of the character and me making it later, so go ahead. You won't have that box there, so ignore that box. Alright, so what we need to do for this character is we need to go ahead and add in different boxes, hit boxes. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to add a sphere component. So we're going to go ahead and click add component, and we want sphere, and if I could spell sphere right, we want a sphere collision. So this sphere collision, we want it to be pretty darn big. I believe I have mine set to 50. That might be a little too big. Actually, let's go ahead and type in 50. Nope, that looks about right. I believe that's what I have it set to on here. No, I only have it set to 30. So we're going to set it to 30. So this sphere will be 30 units in size. Okay, so we have a 30 scaled sphere. So what's going to happen is basically when the player walks into the sphere, we want the AI to go ahead and track the player, chase the player down, and go ahead and attack the player. The next thing we need to do is we need to add a collision box for the sphere. So when the AI is using the spear attack. We want to see if the player is in range to start the spear attack, and then we also want to see if the player is still overlapping the spear after the animation finishes, because you don't want the player to have jumped over him and still take damage even though the spear is not actually hitting the player. So we're going to go ahead and put that logic in as well to prevent that from happening. So the next thing we need to add is a box collision. So go ahead and type in box collision into the menu here, and we didn't want that parented to the sphere, so we're going to go ahead and drag that back up to the sprite. So this box collision scale, we're going to drop this back down to 1 so it fits back in our little field of view here. And let's keep scaling it out a little bit. So we're going to drag it over to the side, and then we're going to go ahead and make it a bit bigger size-wise, and then we'll go ahead and drag it this way to make it lengthwise. And we're going to go ahead and click on this select scale thing to move it, and once again click on the 2 arrows to keep it in the plane. There we go, our spear is in its range. If you want to make sure that it's in the actual hitbox of the actual animation to make it more accurate, go ahead and change your animation on the sprite over here. If you go ahead and change that to the attack animation that we created, the all caps attack. So as you can see, my box is actually a little low, so we're going to bring that up a little bit. Oh, not the sprite, we don't want to move the sprite up. We want to move the box up, so we're going to bring the box up to where the sprite is attacking. So now you can see it's in the hitbox, and actually it's a little bit shallow. We want to go a little bit further. There we go, that's where the spear is actually hitting all the way to. So we've got this centered around where our spear attack is actually hitting, so that's good. It's in the range of our spear, it's in the size of the spear, so everything is all set. So once again, all we did was add a sphere collision box and a box collision box to go ahead and do these animation handlings. So go ahead and compile and save this, and we'll move on to the next step. So switch our animation back to the idle animation, or you can leave it as the attack animation. It doesn't actually really matter too much. So I'm going to go ahead and switch it back to idle though, because I am a bit OCD. Alright, so what you're going to do from this point is head over to the event graph, and this is where it's going to get a bit more complicated, so I'm going to slow down a little bit to really make sure that I'm getting everything covered here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to highlight this whole region right here, and we need to drag this down to make a ton of space. We have a lot of stuff that's going to be going in here. So make yourself a good amount of room. The next thing you're going to do is go ahead and add in a branch. So this branch is going to go in before this swording thing here, and actually what I'm going to do is drag this little box up so that all these animations handling things stay down here and inside of the box. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and add in a branch. So once again, to do the branch, you're going to hold down the B key and left click to bring in a branch. What we're going to check for here is we're going to see if the AI character is in range of the player. So what you're going to do is drag the isOverlapping variable, which is the one that's going to dictate if the player is overlapping the AI character's vision, bubble, whatever you want to call it, and we're going to drop it in there. So now we don't actually have this variable coded to do anything, so let's go ahead and handle that now. So what you're going to want to do is head back over to the viewport, or you can do it from right here, it doesn't matter where you do it, and you're going to click on the sphere. You're going to right click the sphere because this is our overlapping sphere around the player. So right click on the sphere, add event, and you want to add it when the component begins to overlap. So click this add on component begin overlap, it's the second option. That's going to bring us way down here. It doesn't really matter where you do this. You can drag it to make it easier to find or whatever you want to do. But basically all we're going to do with this little node right here is we're going to check to see if it is overlapping the player. So what we want to do is cast to 2D side scroller character. So basically get the player's character. And if it is the player character that is overlapping, we want to set the isOverlapping variable to true. So isOverlapping, set isOverlapping to true. Same thing we want to do is when it ends overlap. So what we're going to do is click on sphere, right click, add event on component end overlap, which is our second option once again since the begin overlap is already over. Same exact thing, we're going to cast to 2D side scroller character. Go ahead and enter that in, and then we're going to go ahead and set the isOverlapping to false. So that's all we did right here. So basically this is just saying, is the character in range, is the player character in range of the AI? So we've got that set up, so we're going to head back over to our big line of code. So, is the player character overlapping? If the player character is not overlapping, then we're just going to go ahead and continue along our little path. So we can drag the false node down to the input of the sorting down here. Now, if the player character is overlapping, what we want to do is go ahead and get the side scroller character. So to get the side scroller character, we're going to have to get the player controller. So go ahead and type in get player character, not controller, type in get player character. So we want to get the character the player is playing as. What we want to do is make sure that that is the 2D player character, so just in case you ever added in like a different mode or anything, where you can go ahead and like top down or something, I don't know what you would even do, but what we want to do is we want to cast to 2D side scroller character and make sure that they are playing as the side scroller character. So go ahead and drag the true node into there. So what we want to do as the 2D side scroller character is we want to go ahead and get the capsule component. So drag off that little node and type in capsule component. So if you just type in capsule and scroll down to the bottom of the list, you will see the option character get capsule component. So we now have our capsule component. This is the piece that holds the player in or the player is bounded by. So what we're going to do is go ahead and drag off of that, and we want to get the world location of that. So get world location, we're going to go ahead and type that in, get world location, and that's going to give us 3 variables, or it's going to give this one node, this yellow output node. What you're going to do is right click on that, and you're going to go ahead and hit split structure pin. So that's going to give you the X, Y, and Z of the player. That's going to tell you where the player is in terms of world space. The next thing we want to do is we want to get the capsule component of the AI character. So this is the capsule component right here. You can actually just click that and drag it in, and it will bring the capsule component in. You're going to do the same exact thing. So we're going to go ahead and get world location. So now once again, split the struct pin, split struct pin, and now we have the X, Y, and Z of our AI character. So what we're going to do is we want to find out which direction the AI character has to move to get towards the player. So which direction in the X direction does the player need to move to get to that character? To do that, we're going to drag off of the X, and we're going to drag down to the icon right here. To do that, we're going to drag off of the get world location of the 2D side scroller characters capsule. We're going to drag off of that. We're going to type in minus. So we want to do float minus float. What we're going to do is drag the X value in from up here. So we have our 2 X values. They do this little crisscross animation if you have it set up the same as me. Go ahead and compile and save before this thing crashes. And yeah, so we have this little crisscross thing. So the reason we're doing it with this little inversion right here is because we want to be subtracting the position of the AI from the character. So really, if you wanted to make it look prettier, you could drag this side down here and drag this piece up here. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much as long as you know what's going on. But coding could get a little messy, so do whatever you feel is best. But that is why we want to be subtracting those variables like that. So at that point, what we want to do is we want to check to see if this variable is greater than 0. So float greater than or equal to 0. After that, we're going to go ahead and insert a branch and put our little Boolean operator into here, and go ahead and drag off of this casted 2D side scroller, this top variable piece, output piece right here, drag that into the branch. So when we get to the branch, what we want to do is basically set the BIsMoveRight variable. So this BIsMoveRight variable basically is telling the player which way to move. So when you go ahead and hit A or D on the keyboard, it's saying OK left, OK right, and you're manually flipping that variable in the code. What we're going to do now is we're going to set that variable based on which way the player is oriented from the AI character. So that's why we're doing the subtraction. So if this is true, if this Boolean is true, if this number is greater than 0, what we're going to do is we're going to set BIsMoveRight. And if I could spell BIsMovingRight correctly, so BIsMovingRight, we're going to set that true. And on the false, we're going to set BIsMovingRight to false. So that just keeps it, simple. True is true, false is false. At that point, what we want to do is we want to add movement input. So go ahead and type in add movement input and drag in both of these nodes because we're always adding movement input. And the movement input we're going to add is going to be scaled by how far away they are. It doesn't really matter because it's either 0 or 1, and the character will always be 0 or 1 unit away from, it'll always be more than 1 unit away, so it'll always be scaling in the correct direction, so we don't really need to worry too much about that. So that goes ahead and sets up our character's movement and direction and all of that great stuff. To get this to work, what you're going to do is hold down Alt and left click on this little icon dropping down from Dead Knight 1 and go ahead and drag in the false into the branch right here. So basically all this is saying, as long as the thing is not dead, start moving towards the character if you're overlapping it. If you're not overlapping it, are you doing any attacks or anything? No, otherwise you're just going to go ahead and stand there because you have no movement input. Because you will not have any movement input, you will have no velocity, so you will always be doing the idle animation. So it works really nicely. As messy as it looks, it makes perfect sense on how it works. So we've got that all set up. So the next thing we're going to have to do is go ahead and actually tell the AI which way to face and do all of its animation handling there. So what we're going to do is scroll down to this bottom bit a little bit further in the same box we've been working in, this updates animation box. Go down to the bottom here. So what we need to do is we need to adjust this logic right here. Basically, there's no controller plugging into this player. There's no controller inputting anything, so these controller variables that are doing these sorts of things aren't actually going to do anything. So we need to directly set the rotation of the actor. So in order to do that, go ahead and delete this get controller, delete this get controller, and go ahead and delete this node. So to do that, you can just hold down Alt once again and left click, Alt left click to delete that and that. You can go ahead and delete this right here. So you can go ahead and click delete right there. Go ahead and click delete right there. So what we need to do is we need to just straight up set the actor rotation. So type in set actor rotation, which is the top option right here. Go ahead and drag back in these nodes. So once again, this node goes here, this node goes here. And then once again, we're going to make a copy of this. So Control C, Control V to drag another one in and drag this node into here and the false node into this. So basically all we did was replace that controller rotation to set the actor rotation. So once again, all of these things that we're creating are called actors, which is why it's called set actor rotation. All we do is plug in these same exact pieces that we had right here, plug these in, plug these back in, go ahead and drop this guy in over here into our input that we had created here for the set stamina thing from before. Go ahead and drop this one in right here, compile and save. So the only thing we have left to do to go ahead and make the player move is we're going to go ahead and drag this node off right here at the end. So basically what's happening is if we didn't do this, it goes through and does, okay, yep, just stand there, do nothing, yep, okay, cool. So what we need to do is get to the point where we put this movement input and change the direction. So we're going to go ahead and drag off of this add movement input option right here, drag it into the branch below for sorting. So basically it'll run this animation and then continue through onto the next line of code. Finally, the only other thing we need to do is tell it a world direction. So this world direction, we're just going to go ahead and set to 1 in the X direction. So that's going to make this all work out. So if we go ahead and compile and save, and if we went to the map and I minimized when I shouldn't have minimized, we want to go to the level 1. So if I go to the level 1 right now and go ahead and delete in the character that I already have in here and drop in a Knight 1A, for you it'll just be your Knight 1. Go ahead and put it up to about, for your Z is 250, and then for your Y, make sure that it is at 0. So we go ahead and hit save that and go ahead and click play. Your AI will now follow the player and actually follow the player around. He won't do anything other than follow the player though, so that's kind of sad. And if you fight the thing, it doesn't do anything, doesn't react. But we do have an AI that will follow the player and stick very closely to the player. So you see how quickly the AI is moving. That is a bit too fast for my liking. Maybe you want it to be able to run as fast as the player, but I like the player to be able to outrun the AI a little bit. You know, if you're like on a running scene or something, you want to be able to get away. So if you go to the character movement on the Knight 1A, so if you go to viewport, character movement on the left over here, on the search menu, go ahead and type in speed, and you'll see max walk speed. This value I have set to 450. I think it's a good number. So change this max walk speed to 450. If you go ahead and compile and save and click play again, as you can see, the player can now outrun the AI and doesn't have to worry about getting chased down. Well, they're going to get chased, but they don't get completely swamped and then stick to them like glue. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is be able to have the AI fight the player. So we want the AI to run his attack animations, do damage to the player, and all of that great stuff. So go ahead and hop into the event graph, and we're going to start up over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and click on this box overlap that basically is the spear indication where the spear is hitting the player. And we're going to go ahead and right click on that, and we're going to add an event. And the event we want to add is on event begin overlap. So once again, it's going to drop our node down here, and what we want to do is basically determine the character's position and all of that great stuff. So basically what we just did above, we want to go ahead and do again. So you can actually just Control-C, Control-V, drop that same node in, drag in these two nodes, yes. So once again, we're going to check to see if the other actor is the 2D side-scroller character. If it is the 2D side-scroller character, we want to set that it is overlapping the spear. So is overlapping spear. So is it overlapping the spear? Yes, it is overlapping the spear, so check the little checkbox. Next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to see if the player is already throwing something. So this is more just a line if you had like multiple animations for a character, but since these are just melee only, it doesn't really matter. But if you did want to go ahead and add in multiple animations or different sorts of attacks for the AI characters, you would need this line, so that is why I'm adding it in here for you, so you can go ahead and see where you would adjust it. So right now we're checking to see if the player is throwing something or shooting something or using a projectile. So next thing we're going to want to do is add a do once. So basically we want to only do the animation once, just like with our own character. We don't want it to continue spamming the animation. So do once, input, and we're going to go ahead and reset that off of something in a little bit. Next thing we want to do is we want to set the sword variable. So basically we want to have something to determine if the player is attacking or if the AI character is attacking, and we luckily already have that in here from this sorting variable that we created in the character blueprint. It's already in there, so since we just copy and pasted the blueprint, we don't have to remake it. So we can go ahead and set sorting. So what we want to do is set sorting to true. So at this point, our character is using the spear attack. I know sorting spear might confuse you a little bit, but it's basically the attack variable. If you wanted to rename it, you could say melee attack, and for throwing, you could say ranged attack for the variable names. You just need to remember that the sorting is the melee attack. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go ahead and add in a delay. So we want to delay for half a second, just half a second. So type in delay, and that delay is for 0.5. So what this delay is going to let it do is it's basically going to let the animation start. So the animation takes about 0.4 seconds to play out. So it's going to do the animation and then check to see a whole bunch of different things. So we're going to need to set in a series of branches. So you're going to want to go ahead and drop in 3 branches. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So on these branches, what we're going to do is we're going to check different variables. So what we want to do first is we want to make sure that the player is not dead, or the AI is not dead. So we're going to check the character dead knight A, get dead knight A, and plug it into this first branch. The next thing we want to do is we want to check to make sure that the AI is not being hit. So if the AI is being hit, we don't want the animations to continue. We don't want the player to take damage because the player is currently stun locking the AI or preventing the AI from attacking. So we're going to drop in this hit variable right here. The final thing we need to check is to see that if it is still overlapping the spear. So if the player has escaped the spear or jumped over the attack or whatever and is going to evade the attack, the is overlapping spear is not going to be true, so we don't want to do damage to the player if they're already halfway across the map. So we're going to drop that variable in. So all we're going to do is cascade the false off of each of these. So drag the false down to this one, drag the false down to this one, connect the completed into the top one, and we're good to go with that. So now what we want to do is basically say, okay, was the player hit? Yes. So at this point, we can go ahead and start this whole series over and check again. Basically, we want to keep doing this loop. If the character's stun locked, we want to keep doing this loop. So what we're going to do is, if this is true, if the hit one is true, we'll drag it into the delay and we'll keep looping this loop until the player is not hit, or the AI is not hit, and then we can cascade further through the series. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check to see if the overlapping spear is not true. So if the overlapping spear is not true, if the player is no longer in the spear, then we're no longer attacking, so we can set sorting. So set sorting to false. So basically, are they in range of the spear? No, so we're not attacking anymore, so stop attacking, stop using our sorting variable, and go ahead and plug this back into the reset. So now we can go ahead and run this whole series again if we do end up getting in range of the player. So that completes that bit. The next thing we need to do is go ahead and damage the player if they are still in range of the spear. So after this whole animation plays out, after we've checked to make sure that we're not getting stun locked or anything, are we going to go ahead and be overlapping the spear? So if we are overlapping the spear, what we want to do is get the player character, so get player character. From the get player character, what we want to do is go ahead and cast to 2D side-scrolling character. So we're going to cast to the 2D side-scrolling character, plug this true node into here. From the 2D side-scrolling character, what we're going to want to do is get health. So get our health, take the health variable, and we're going to subtract 5 from it, so minus, and type in float minus float. We're going to subtract 5 from that. You can set this to whatever you want. This is basically the damage the player takes. If you're going to have like different difficulty enemies that do more damage, you can go ahead and just copy this exact blueprint and just change that amount of damage that they do to go ahead and impact the player a little bit further. Then what we want to do is finally set the health of the player. So go and drag off the player and type in set health, and we'll set the health of the player to that new variable that we just created. So make sure that you are dragging off this node when you do this, because this character also has health variables and everything. So if I typed in health, there's a health variable for this character as well, the AI character. So you always want to make sure we're dragging off this 2D side-scroller character when we want to be dealing with the 2D side-scroller character's variables. So next, what we're going to do is add when the animation ends, or basically when the player stops overlapping the spear. This is a super easy bit. All you're going to do is Control-C, Control-V, uncheck that box. And then this custom event we're going to delete. We're going to go ahead and right-click on our box. We're going to hit Add Event and on End Overlap. So when it ends the overlap, go ahead and check the other actor. Check this number box right here, connect those two nodes. If it is our player, go ahead and stop our overlapping spear variable. Compile and save. Another thing we're going to have to do is basically at the end of this animation, so after this whole line plays out, right, we want to continue to loop this, so we want to keep running these checks. So what we're going to do is drag off the end of this node here and plug back into the delay. So basically, okay, we did our attack, let's delay half a second and then go ahead and attack again. So to keep the loop going, that's basically what we're doing. It'll always break whenever we run out of our sorting variable, basically whenever the player is out of range. So super simple. Basically, if you're out of the overlap range, then this will stop, it'll break, it'll reset, and then we can go ahead and do it again later. Another thing that we need to change before I'm an idiot right here is this throwing variable. Drag this down to the false. So basically, if we are not throwing something, then we want to do this, not if we are throwing something. I'm a complete idiot. So now if we go ahead and click play, so if we hit play, he'll walk up to our player, he'll stab our player a bunch of times with his little pokey stick, and if we run away, he'll chase us, and then he'll go back to stabbing us with the pokey stick and doing damage to us. If we get out of range of him while he's attacking, he'll stop the attack and go ahead and chase us again. As you can see right there, he stops and chases us whenever we run out of range, and he will poke us until we die. So yeah, pretty much that does that. However, if we go ahead and hit respawn here, you'll notice that we do not do any damage to the player. We're just going to go ahead and continue to attack through him and do nothing. So now what we need to do is handle the player doing damage to the AI character. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to save that for another episode, because this video is already super long because of how many things needed to happen. So in the next video, what we're going to do is go ahead and handle the player damaging the AI character, as well as some final animation polishing like the hit animation, to go ahead and create a full-on functioning fightable AI character that you can go ahead and drop into your level anywhere you want. So anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did like the video, make sure to like, stay subscribed so you can go ahead and check out the rest of the videos when they come out in the series. And as always, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.